In order to allow myself to have some fun while I'm creating over 100 portraits, because after a while I felt like I was a factory, right? Just like, and it cannot feel like that. Art making cannot feel like it's work, right? It's supposed to be fun for us. I experimented using a wax medium, so with a palette knife and the different oil colors, mixing it with the palette knife, the wax allowed for a thick texture. Let's see, there's a good one. There's a good one right over here that's very thick, and it's just used with pushing the paint and the palette knife with it, no brush. Just the palette knife, using the brush just on the eyes and the little tiny areas. I will say that I had to use my bifocals because after a while my eyes started going crisscross. It was very straining on the eyes to be painting for hours at a time. And I developed a system that is used by many artists, in which I sort of traced the image in pencil onto the board and then painted on top. And for those of you who may be curious about why I left some unfinished, again, in trying to keep in conversation with contemporary art, many people enjoy seeing the process and the almost like the hand of the artist, right? Of seeing how and when do we decide as an artist when something is complete. And for those of you who may be interested in the book, they're $20 for you guys if you wish to purchase the book, and the donations will be taken to Puerto Rico. My family has been already, my husband went on a trip already to bring aid to Puerto Rico, and I'm planning another one in November and another one in December. There are a lot of families that are displaced and have nothing.
The whole thing is a terrible disgrace of this country. It's a very big disgrace.
Anybody have questions about the hurricane and the effect it had on Puerto Rico when you heard in the news?
Or any questions about Puerto Rico and the United States that I can share with you quickly?
Where is your family from in Puerto Rico?
In Cuevas, which is south of San Juan. It's just about 45-minute drive, usually. but now that there's no electricity and you have to be careful running through lights now. And then my husband is from Ponce, which is in the southern part of the island.
Was the whole island affected, or was it just a certain section?
It's the entire island.
Oh my God.
It's the entire island, and what's worse, the metro areas, as you can imagine, living in a city, the city has better access, right, to other mediums, right? You're all together in closer space. Just think about if you've ever been out to the countryside in a remote area where there's a tiny road that takes you to the place, and it's in the mountains. The mountains in Puerto Rico are made out of this very soft clay, almost those of you who play with clay, and the water just creates mudslides and taking over bridges and streets and roads. So those are the hardest hit people. My husband in the town of Ponce went to the neighborhoods that are in the mountains and they have those little streets, and he said that it was just heartbreaking for him to witness and see these families with nothing.
That's because, like, if something happened here, like in Florida, we still have all the other states
Around,
that still can
correct.
help and get to them. Where that's an island.
But
you have to do
even
things out
then, there's I've been following a group of veterans who has been concentrated on one town in the mountains, where there are these special Naval SEAL people that organize, like they do the at-risk missions, and so they go specifically where FEMA and the National Guard cannot go because they find it too remote and too dangerous to go to. So they have to risk their lives essentially to go out and find a way to get to the people. At some point where the road ends, you have to start climbing towards the place and lug some sort of aid to the people that have not been able to exit that area. But yeah. Yes.
I'm curious to see as this unfolds, if there's going to be conversation around Puerto Rico becoming the 51st state. Because I know they do that referendum every 3 to 4 years, and the island has always been split over whether to keep Commonwealth status or to.
I personally think it has nothing to do with the choice of the people in Puerto Rico. From my own personal research and some things that I have read and seen, it's really up to the United States, the government, to make that decision. I have read that it would be a loss for Wall Street for Puerto Rico to become part of the United States. So they make more money from us from Puerto Rico than they give to Puerto Rico.
Because that's part of the challenge. I mean, in Florida, the governor can say it's a state of emergency.
Right.
That triggers the federal government to give money and support,
Yeah.
and then the state can manage it almost like its own company.
Yeah.
But Puerto Rico's governor has a seat in Congress but no voting rights.
Right.
So it's like running a state with no power.
Right.
You have no authority.
Yeah.
It's strange.
And just to tell the young people here, Puerto Rico never had an option to fight for independence. Never. It was taken from them. And I mean taken from them was that the government really made it their goal to make sure that nobody fought for independence. And what do they mean? How do they make that for sure? They incarcerated individuals, they tortured individuals, people disappeared. And again, that's a little bit of what the book will discuss, and also my personal connection with that. My great-grandfather on my mother's father's side, who was best friends with the main nationalist leader of Puerto Rico, and the family tale goes that he died in a car accident. And we don't know, whether that is true or not, because according to all the research that I have made and the connections that I made, there was no way that he died in a car accident.
Did he have a car?
He did. He did
Okay.
have a car, but just when I tied in the actual dates and I looked at the FBI files of the nationalist that was incarcerated, there's no way that it was by accident that that he just suddenly died.
When did you start this project?
This project began in 2015.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Wanted to, I did a lot of researching first in 2013 when the selfie craze exploded. And I first, I was looking, I had to research and see why are we so involved in the selfies, and why are people taking so many selfies and posting them everywhere. And what I focused on was the form of activism. The creation of these hashtags, and why were people using their self-image to create these conversations and extend conversation outside of their daily lives or surroundings, and they took it upon themselves to post it on social media. Mm-hmm. And in the art world, again, artists are always asked, why is portraiture still important today? Mm-hmm. It's relevant. It's very relevant today, the same as it was, back in the days when only the wealthy had portraits painted of themselves. And again, drawing on more art history on when people used to carry their loved ones on pendants, these little tiny pendants that were painted of loved ones, and again, tying it back in on how do we carry loved ones today on our cell phones. Anything else?